Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to our live where we are going to talk about the importance of addressing the mental health of parents who have lost a child to an illness. Please hit the like button if we're audible and clearly visible. Thank you. So I see our guests have joined. Hi, Priyal. Hi, Divyam. And hi, Jyoti.
Hello, Simran, and hello to everyone.
Hi, Priyal.
Hi Simran. Hi all.
Hi.
Hi Simran. Hi everybody.
Hi. Thank you so much to all three of you for joining me for this discussion today. Let's just give it a few minutes, a few seconds. Let's just wait for some more people to join our live before we start. We're actually joining from few different parts of the world today. So thank you for making the time. Okay, so why don't we begin? The mental health of parents who have a child diagnosed with a critical medical conditions is such an important issue and usually not given attention. Please help in spreading the word. Share the video with all your friends, whoever has joined, so they can join us today and create some awareness. Okay, hi everyone. I'm going to formally introduce myself. My name is Simran Sagar, and I'm part of the Genesis Foundation, a Gurgaon-based trust that supports the treatment of critically ill, underprivileged children suffering from a congenital heart defect, or what is commonly known as CHD. Becoming a parent is already a life-altering experience for most people. The journey, however, takes a very different turn if your child is diagnosed with a critical medical condition or if you lose your child to one. So today, on World Mental Health Day, we will be addressing this often overlooked and yet critical part of parenting, accepting, coping, and healing from that loss. Today, we have amongst us three parents who have been on this journey and also happen to be a very integral part of our Genesis Foundation family. Having gone through a difficult time, they have channelized their grief towards creating awareness and supporting other families, such as on occasions like today. They're joining me to share their struggles and the tools that they have used for emotional survival and well being. After all, it is when stories come together that we can push forward and support one another. Thank you once again, Jyoti, Priyal, and Divyam for joining us today. So, a quick introduction. Jyoti is the founder trustee of Genesis Foundation. He is also the founder of J. Sagar Associates, a corporate and commercial law practice, and KNS Partners, an intellectual property law boutique. Priyal Guliani, a journalist, has worked with premium business channels covering different aspects of financial news and is a communications specialist. She joins us from Paris today. Divyam Agarwal is a partner at J. Sagar Associates and a dual qualified Indian advocate and English solicitor who joins us together with me from India. So, we have shared your stories before, but for the interest of those joining us for the first time, could you briefly talk about what brings you here today? Maybe Jyoti, if you could start, as what binds us together today is your story, which has been the reason for the inception of Genesis Foundation.
Thank you for having me. So over 35 years ago, my wife Prema and I lost our second born son, Samir, to a congenital heart defect. At that time, both awareness and information about congenital heart defects and the medical facilities to treat the same were almost non-existent. We had a difficult pregnancy. Prema was confined to bed for almost 6 months because of a uterus prolapse. Samir was born in a small boutique clinic run by a leading gynecologist of that time. Today, when I look back, it strikes me that we were so poorly informed. We were never told that Samir had been born with an Apgar score of just over 2, which meant that he was in serious distress. The clinic where he was born did not have the facilities to handle this sort of an emergency. And I had to rush Samir to a leading hospital with a neonatal ICU. Within hours, Samir had turned blue, and in under 16 hours, he was gone. I was all alone, nervously waiting outside the ICU when late in the night, the doctor told me that Samir had gone, just like that. Prema was still recovering from the C-section. It had been a stressful surgery, and she had no idea of what was going on.
I know. I'm sorry. I cannot imagine, uh, Jyoti, what those moments would have been like. And yet, you have come so far from there with a mission to help other families and children fight a critical heart defect. Um, Thank you for sharing that. I know just how hard that would have been. Priyal, you had Ara with you for 4 months. Would you like to share your experience?
Well, Simran, it's a very long, lot of experiences there to share, but I will restrict it today in context of mental health. And when I was hearing Mr. Sagar, it almost, there was some deja vu of sorts that were there, because when I got to know 2 days after Ara was born that she has a very critical and congenital heart defect.
Yeah,
My husband knew from day one, and which itself was a miracle, because most of the kids, go undetected at that time. And it was that our saturation levels did not go beyond 89 that we realized it was there was an issue. And same, we were in a maternity hospital, and Anami had to run and get ambulances and go to a bigger facility to figure out even what was happening.
yeah,
She did not have the immediate issue, as Mr. Sagar mentioned. She had some time frame in terms of to be attended to, but she had a very rare condition.
yeah,
So one very important aspect that I would like to point out is that, unlike most places, I was pregnant at 35, and most places have a very standard protocol of fetal echogram, at least in today's day and age,
yeah,
which did not happen because all my other parameters were fine. But that's a standard protocol, which did not happen in my case. I probably would have known, and probably then would not have chosen a other, or I don't know which way I would have gone. It's just on a hindsight that we can talk about. But that was just the beginning of the trauma. I was given so much of as an information and stress at the same time, that I almost feared to hold my baby. I
yeah,
couldn't. And also, that's something I just, I was told, you have to make sure that she doesn't get any infection till the time you are able to go to another hospital for a big operation, and we don't know when it's going to be. And the feeding, the challenges that were listed before me was crazy. So it was postpartum, it was the stress that your child has a rare condition, it was
yeah,
also the situation. It didn't end there. Within the 2 months of Ara's life, we had four big surgeries, where the doc and we were in the midst of doctor politics, running from one hospital to another. Someone doesn't want to take the baby because she has such a rare condition, it won't go
yeah,
well with their hospital records. So it was a very difficult situation of ambulances, tubes, ventilators, and all of that culminated our 4 months. She came back home when we thought it was a little recovery, only that we were supposed to go back to the hospital again. And when you have to bury your child, Simran, things change. You change forever.
of course, of course. Thank you so much, Priya, for sharing that. I mean, I can only imagine the pain and the range of emotions you have and you continue to go through. The lack of information is something I think that stands out both in yours and in Jyoti's story. Divyam, yours and Kriti's journey has been a little different. Could you please share your experience with our listeners?
Thank you. And it's really heartening to hear what Mr. Sagar and Ms. Guliani pointed out. Um, Very similar to Mr. Sagar's story, my wife and I had a heartbreaking loss of our first child, who was a stillborn and possibly suffered from a congenital heart defect, CHD, as we commonly know. Uh, for us, it all started in 2015 when my wife, Priti, and I were expecting our first child. I
Yeah,
mean, we were beaming with joy. We regularly went for checkups, no alarms. I mean, everybody was happy around us. I mean, you have those baby showers and the baby photo shoots and all those things are going around. I
yeah,
mean, you don't really care at that time period. I mean, the thought process is how to keep the mother healthy. I mean, people are literally force feeding you with sweets and all those things. I mean, little we know, I mean, how critical they can be. I
yeah.
mean, in the eighth month of pregnancy, I mean, it was somewhere around end of June 2016, we went for a regular checkup. And I
Okay.
mean, little did we know that this trip would be the worst day of our life. I mean, to our shock and disbelief, the doctor just told us that the child has no heartbeat. I mean, I still remember in disbelief. I said, "You must be joking, right? I mean, I mean, what are you saying? Is that even possible?" Those were the initial reactions I had. We did all possible checkups, but the child was gone. I mean, Kriti was admitted in hospital and was forced to go into labor to get the stillborn baby out. I mean, unlike a regular labor where the child is also pushing out,
Yeah,
he has to actually do that on behalf of the stillborn child as well. I mean, and as Priyal rightly pointed out, I mean, there cannot be anything worse than burying your own child. Uh, what to
yeah,
say, it still gives you those goosebumps.
yeah.
I mean, I remember it was like for us, it was an end of our world. We were both in depression for many, many months, and it deeply affected our relationship also. And I would say we learned the hard and the worst possible way, but it's our desire that uh, the expecting parents should not suffer. Nobody should suffer the way we did. I mean, as the saying goes, you don't even want your worst possible enemy to go through this.
Yeah.
Uh, we sincerely urge expecting parents to be more informed, more aware. Please read up, please ask questions. Those are like the initial thoughts I have.
Thank you for sharing that, Divyam. I mean, I think we all completely agree with what you've said. I mean, and it would have taken unbelievable amounts of strength for you to join us today. So again, thank you for sharing what you just did with our listeners. There are three different stories and experiences, and yet I can see the common thread that unites all of you with us here today. Jyoti, Prema, and you went through this difficult phase of your life when awareness and access to information regarding congenital heart defects was very limited. How did Prema and you emotionally cope with the diagnosis? That too only after the birth of Samir.
Yeah, we are talking of over 35 years ago, and those were the days when there were no cell phones. We couldn't even have a photograph of Samir. It all just so happened so suddenly. And
Yeah,
the irony was that Prema never got to see Samir, let alone hold him in her arms. She was not in a good condition post the C-section. And so her doctor said that she should not go through any trauma until she gets better. So one could not break the news to her that we had lost Samir. And that carried on for 3 to 4 days. And those were some of the most difficult moments where one had to pretend and hide the sorrow. But there is a reason, what they call a mother's instinct. Prema had, of course, sensed there was something wrong. When we did eventually tell her, of course, she was devastated. It was heartbreaking that she never got to hold her baby. The time after Sameer's death was a period of turmoil. And as a family, we went through the classic cycle of denial and anger, and often asking, why us? And then eventually, acceptance. But that whole journey from anger to acceptance is a very profound experience. And those days, there wasn't much help or counseling or any other professional assistance that we could access. So
Yeah.
it was a very, very difficult time for us.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it would be fair to say that you and Prema, I mean, of course, it would have taken some time, quite a lot of time, but you took that grief and you transformed it into helping other families who have no funds to save their child. I think the thinking behind that was that no child should die because of a lack of funds. Divyam, you and Kriti have had a tough journey, and that too, it was a very recent one. Would you like to? I know you've already touched on it a little bit right now, but would you like to share your emotional journey and perhaps the impact that it had on both of you mentally? I mean, you had touched on that right now, how it did have a profound effect on both of you naturally. So, would you like to perhaps elaborate a little?
I mean, I think Mr. Sagar used the right word, that it was an emotionally devastating experience.
Yes.
After all, I mean, when this happened, we both were barely 30 years old. I mean, you're still trying to make your ends meet. You're still trying to just put together a life, and then you're
Yeah.
just grappled with this situation where, I mean, the obvious question is, why us? Why did it happen to us? I mean, I remember we both questioned each other. We in fact went to the extent of tried pinning blame on each other. We tried pinning blame on the world, to our circumstances, to our family members. I mean, we said that I mean, we tried finding uh, small circumstances that I'm sure that it must have happened because we had this fight. I'm sure this it must have happened because we had this argument. You forced me to had this argument. So I mean, this literally sucked not only the energy, it sucked in that black hole. I remember my wife used to sit in this room and I mean, hearing songs and kept listening to. I remember the one song which kept playing in our house was Jagjit Singh's song, that "Na koi chitti, na koi sandesh." I mean, it. I mean, and I trust me, till date, if I hear that song, it just brings tears to my eyes. I mean, it tore us apart as a relationship. We went to the extent of discussing separation. I mean, it was that difficult a phase. But as Jyoti rightly said, acceptance and time, I would like to believe, is the best healer. After such a struggle, you don't have an option but to accept what happened, but do learn from our experience and move forward. I mean, hats off to Genesis Foundation, how they are changing lives right now. This is exactly what we are here for, we would want to achieve. But again, it is important to learn and move forward and try gain some knowledge from our experience.
Thank you, Divyam. I mean, I know that it would have taken a lot of strength from you to be able to share that, and with not just us, but with everyone who's tuned into this live. And I really, really appreciate it. I know it's a sensitive and difficult space, yet you want to make a difference and raise awareness with us, which is why we're here today. Um, I think very often parents feel a sense of guilt. They hold themselves responsible, like you had just, even Divyam had just mentioned, with conversations he has had probably with his wife about uh, feeling guilty, like why us? Did we do something wrong? Holding yourself responsible. If maybe we had done something differently, would this have maybe not happened? Is that something that you have also experienced, Jyoti or Priyal?
Yeah, we very often wondered, if it was, the typical Hindu philosophy. Was it Samir's karma, or was it ours?
Yeah,
Did we really deserve this, or was all this to give us a realization of loss and grief,
yeah,
and start a journey where we could be a source of help to others? When Sameer passed away, we went through this range of emotions, and the biggest question was why us, as Divyam also mentioned.
Yes.
Well, Simran, definitely why me, why us is the question that happened for a very, very long period of time. I was, in fact, angry at that point in time, very angry with even God in terms of, why a child has to be born, because I saw the 4 months of Ara's suffering very badly.
Yeah.
Where as a baby, I don't know what she's feeling, but has tubes and I can only see cries, like hear
Yeah.
cries in an instant, that's all. So it was very tough in terms of that why a child has to be born only to see sufferings.
Yes.
And of course, after her passing, it was like, what, and that is sort of led to what the purpose of her is. And I wanted to continue with thankfully, Genesis Foundation helped me to do that. But the guilt really is, I'm not, I'm focusing on the mental health part, but the guilt was that for the longest time, uh, you know, being happy or smiling,
Yeah.
there was a guilt like, uh, how am I happy? Why am I smiling? It took a lot of time to accept that. There's not a day that goes without, reliving the day. I woke up to see her not breathing. And I carry with me the fact, even today, to see if my son is breathing, my husband is breathing. It's a
Yeah.
trauma that I carry. It's something I live with.
Yeah. I understand. And on that note, if there is anyone who has joined us today and is listening, if these are emotions or thoughts that you have had, or you know anyone who's had them, please be sure to contact a medical professional or a support group, and don't shy away from getting support to deal with grief. Divyam, what have been the best coping mechanisms that have helped you go through this difficult time? Like, how did you struggle through depression and, of course, trauma? How did you and Kriti navigate through that?
I mean, as I said, of course, time is the best healer.
Yeah,
Apart from that, for us, the thing really worked was to investigate the root cause and to really work towards a safer pregnancy. We did not waste time. uh, I mean, it was a conscious call at our end that let's not just delve over it. Let's see if we can achieve a safe pregnancy, a safe child, and let's work towards that. So we really focused all our energies towards having a second pregnancy. We really worked towards finding the solution to this problem. We read a lot, and we realized that what we went through, CHT, is one of the most frequent occurring congenital disorder. It's
yes,
responsible for 28% of all congenital birth defects. Just to give us statistics, every year in India, 240,000 children are born with CHT. So it's a staggering number. So
yes,
so for us, what worked was to educate and understand how to go through a safer pregnancy, learn more, and obviously to stay close to each other. And no matter what happened, I mean, we tried. We realized that we have to act as a team if we really
yes.
to sail through this.
So it's safe to say that you both took acquiring knowledge and understanding the fact that teamwork is basically what pulled you both through it and guided you through your then second pregnancy. Thanks. Priyal, did you ever access a parent support group by any chance? Were you able to find one? Did you want to reach out to one?
Well, that is something that I really missed because, when you're in the hospital for the whole day, all through, and you're just able to get access to your child for like 2 weeks, 2 hours or something like that, you really want someone to guide you through as to where are we headed? What is this
Yeah,
journey to be? And that was missing. See, unlike most of the other ailments, be it cancer or whatever, there's little understanding. I mean, I remember covering a long time back an insurance story, and they said CHDs is not covered. That's the only thing I knew of CHD. And
yeah,
then I discovered what it really was and all. And so I really missed. I did see a lot of parent blogs from US or outside, but they seemed far off. They
Yeah,
didn't seem like I had a support group of my own. I had my mother was traveling from different city. I had my husband's family. Everybody was around, but
yeah.
you need for sailing the same boat to get in to at that time. You just need your own village, sort of a thing. And I think after I lost Ara was when I met Prema, and the team of GF used to be in the hospital that I was there,
Yeah,
and that became like my family,
yeah.
and that's how you know GF became a second home for Ara.
The story resonated, and I mean, you met the right people at the right time,
Absolutely.
and that's how you kind of came on board, and similar to Jyoti, wanted to basically help others.
When I lost Ara, when I lost Ara, the first one of the few people in the industry who messaged me was Prema,
Mhm.
and I really wanted to meet her because I saw the work GF did on ground with my own eyes in 4 months. So I wanted to be a part of that story.
Thanks for sharing that. I mean, that is why we are here today to talk about your journeys, Priyal, Jyoti, and Divyam, where the situations again may have been different, but the underlying emotions, as three of you share your stories, are very similar, and there is a common thread that does tie all three stories together. Once again, I'd like to urge that if there are parents listening today who are in a similar situation, please reach out and connect to others. Um, as the paths may be different, but what it takes to walk on that path will be very similar. Jyoti, Prema and you are truly an inspiration to many people. Where, because like I said before, where you have been able to convert your personal grief into a mission in the form of a trust to help thousands of families. I mean, at Genesis Foundation, we have lent a helping hand and tried to give life a chance to over 3,700 children to date. Um, how did this thought to set up Genesis Foundation surface?
Well, uh, Prema and I finally realized that there was a message. There was a message in the loss of Samir.
Yes.
Initially, we were still coping with our loss, but Prema and I often spoke about how it felt to lose a child, and worse, what it'd be if one did not have the means to help your child survive. This thought got us to start supporting the treatment of a few children at missionaries of charity who were suffering from serious medical issues. We would raise money from family and friends, and at that time it was all very informal. Uh, we did not have the means or the bandwidth back then to kind of establish any formal structures. But the thought of doing something on a more sustained basis never left us. And finally, in May of 2001, we decided to start, even though on a rather small scale. And so we signed a trust deed to form Genesis Foundation. And the simple belief, as you mentioned, Simran, was that no child should die due to lack of money.
Yeah.
And Prema and I felt that we have to give life a chance, and the foundation has played a role in giving life a chance to over 3,700 children across the country.
Yes.
So the legacy of Samir lives on through the work of the foundation.
Thank you. All three families with us today have gone ahead and had children after suffering the loss that they did. Jyoti and Prema. Same for Priyal, who has a 3.5-year-old little boy, and Divyam, a 5-year-old. How was the journey in the second pregnancy for you, Priyal, and for your wife, Divyam? I know you had touched on it slightly through the previous things that you've mentioned about knowledge and reading and being better informed for your second pregnancy. Did you and your respective partners feel that fear was like a very dominant emotion through the second pregnancy, because that would be natural? Or did you feel being informed changed the journey completely and there was very little fear? Perhaps Priyal, you could start.
Well, a very important question for me, Simran, personally, because it also highlights the mental situation that I was in. I was in Houston at that time, and honestly took about 3 appointments to go through an abortion because I was so terrified.
Yeah.
I had doctors in India before we left after Ara's passing, mentioned that if one child has had, there's a high probability of other child having it. So there was a lot of fear, and because I'd seen Ara's journey in the hospital as very tough one, I was not willing to take a chance if my second child had the same situation.
Yeah.
But when I went to the genetic counseling, team in Houston, and they said I have less than 5% chance. And honestly, if I did not have undergone therapy, which I was ever since that I lost Ara, because I was paralyzed to an extent that I couldn't move from one room to another. Uh, I could not have had my son. I had a huge friend support, luckily in Houston, but friend support and the
The
therapy
therapy.
that
That
made me
made
take the decision of yes, I can do it, and I was able to do it because of that. Having said that, yes, today I do have far more anxiety over small trivial matters. I'm aware of those situations, but I have far more anxiety about just a fever as well.
like, oh, yeah.
That I deal with. And I am completely of the belief that there should be a standard protocol of grief counseling, because you don't know when, where, how it hits you. I also couldn't continue with my profession. I was very busy with my work, but that was for multiple reasons. Until the time I started, I needed a whole lot of therapy and support to go through my next pregnancy.
That's really brave and bold of you to be able to say that out loud, and that's good. That, I mean, everyone has their own coping mechanisms, and for you, it was like you said, your family getting professional help, and that's amazing for you to share that with all of us today. Divyam, if you would like to add something.
Yeah, in fact, what Priyal just mentioned, I mean, those are the like identical emotions, even with my son now. I mean, even if he sneezes, I mean, first reaction is, oh God, let me just see what's happening. I mean, but insofar as the pregnancy was concerned, I mean, when we tested and we checked with the gynac, we realized that we had a history of CHT and gestational diabetes, and therefore, what we were advised was to have a very strict exercise regime and have a very diet conscious, healthy pregnancy.
Okay.
I sometimes joke with Kriti that we had a flying pregnancy because literally Kriti was on a treadmill for 1 hour every day during the pregnancy. Imagine the day my son was delivered, that day also Kriti had a treadmill because doctor was very clear. If you gain few ounces, it can risk another miscarriage. So we have to ensure. I mean, the weight on at which Kriti conceived was the weight at which she delivered.
Yeah,
So
I remember this last time. That's just amazing.
yeah, so insofar as the experience, yes, we were that fear was there. That every day was a nightmare. We went through some horrendous experiences during that pregnancy. Also, it was very emotional. And you were, as I said, we just dived into another second pregnancy just to cope up with this loss. But during that pregnancy, the experience was that what if this happens again? What if, I mean, are we in a position to bear anything further? Yeah, those were the expression and those were the emotions at that point of time. But thankfully, we have as a human being, it's an important quality we all have, that we know how to move on. So we have moved on, but the objective here is that while moving on, allow everyone to learn and be part of this Genesis Foundation and the great people here who are doing phenomenal work.
Thank you so much, Divyam. Now, I know that this is a bit of a personal question, and you're not obliged to answer it. I know Priyal has already mentioned that she did reach out for support through a counselor or a therapist to navigate through the journey. Did you, Jyoti, or Divyam? I mean, this question is also directed at Priyal as well, though she's answered it. Did you did you reach out for support? And for someone like Priyal who did reach out to support, was it very helpful in this journey to bring you to where you are today, able to be live with us today and be able to talk about it? Because that in itself is a huge step. So maybe if Jyoti, you could start and tell us if you had any support along with Prema through the journey that you both faced together.
Well, we are talking of way back, so
Yeah.
1983. I mean, mental health and questions around mental health those days were a far cry.
Yeah.
And there was just so very little information and absolutely no help available. And I mean, there was no professional help that we could seek. And Prema and I, we went through our grief and emotions very, very privately. And I resumed work and kind of flung myself into getting really busy. And Prema took 6 months off, and during that she did something fantastic. She just kept herself occupied, and that included launching a magazine called Genesis, the City Guide. However, we are living in different times today. There is a lot available for families now, and I would urge parents grieving a child to reach out to a professional for help.
Absolutely. Priyal?
Well, Simran, someone rightly said that child loss is not an event. It is an indescribable journey of survival. And I think that's what we deal with. Life doesn't give you a choice. You wake up every morning and then you have to get going, and all of that. But having said that, I think the purpose plays an important role. When Ara left, we knew that we wanted to carry on work because we saw a lot of kids suffering, and that was a very, very important drive for us. And also, as I said, I took professional help. I continue to take professional help as and when you go along, because grief has no expiry date. It triggers you anytime. Having this conversation, I've done several live interviews, but it just still makes you relive some memories. But you have to do, because you have to do for the cause of, if it makes a difference to one life, if it makes a difference to a person, you ought to do it. And therapy was very helpful for me.
Thank you. Divyam?
Yeah, so we did not reach out to a professional,
Okay.
but I certainly would advise anyone facing any difficulty to speak to a mental health coach. Every couple has or an individual has a different coping mechanism. But I feel that speaking out to somebody, sharing your thoughts, and not always to your partner who's going through the same grief may benefit you. Even in my firm right now, and to an extent, Mr. Sagar is instrumental for it. We have an in-house mental health coach who is available throughout for anybody to just approach and access and speak their heart out on a very anonymous basis. So yes, I would echo the sentiment of both Jyoti and Priyal that you should take help out. I mean, it's there, and one should always exercise that option.
That's amazing that you have the access to that, Divyam. And I mean, it's still also amazing how everyone here today has their own coping mechanisms, like Divyam had rightly said, and yet you've been able to pull yourself through it and do amazing things in your own capacities to make a difference. So for the hundreds and thousands of families who lose their child to a medical illness, the couple is still young. Many times they do not have access to the right information that Divyam has also touched on, how awareness is key. They do not have the right support structure in place. When it comes to the access of information, when it comes to finances, when it comes to a support system that is well informed, well aware to be able to advise them. Jyoti, do you have any message for these people?
Well, just a few thoughts, and some of these are stray thoughts. Of course, the loss of a child or seeing your child suffer from a serious medical condition is just about the worst thing that can happen to anyone. This is, for any parent, just about the worst thing. But one has to believe that there is a higher power, and we are nothing more than just mediums for whatever we do. So sometimes we are put in difficult situations. And my advice would be for young parents is some practical, to reach out to a medical expert as soon as one notices something is not right. There is so much information available now, on the net and otherwise, but I would not suggest that you substitute internet for real medical advice. Do the research, but go and meet the right professionals, ask the right questions, get the right treatment and the support. And there is a message out there. Perhaps there is truth that humanitarian and any philanthropic activities are described as God's work. So whatever one can do in whatever way, by volunteering your time, your services, or supporting others financially, try and do something for someone fighting a battle. It helps you personally enormously.
That's beautifully said. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to once again say thank you to Priyal and Divyam for also sharing your experience with us. I know how hard it would have been to be here with us today and share what you have. But we're grateful that you joined us today, and we're grateful for the input that you have been putting in, Priyal, over the years, and Divyam over the last year or so, to create awareness, to want to do more with foundations like ours, to once again create awareness and make sure families are better informed, and to support families whose children are suffering from a critical illness and need financial support because they have no other means to give their child a chance. I hope we're able to reach out to families who are perhaps better informed today and to let them know that they are not alone, that getting the right help from a professional is okay and it's needed sometimes. It's more than okay. Staying silent does not help. And sometimes when we speak up and we tell our story, we are able to manifest beautiful things just like today, where we are today. We're able to manifest this conversation, the cause of Genesis Foundation, bringing all of us together to save lives, create awareness, because we have spoken up. Divyam has spoken up, Priyal has spoken up, Jyoti and Prema spoke up over 20 years ago, and that's why we're here. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if you have liked this video, please do press the like button or leave a comment, share it with your friends. Do find out about some of the work that we do at Genesis Foundation by visiting our website, which is www.genesis-foundation.net. Thank you.